Welcome, everyone. Appreciate everyone being here today. See Carrie Rowland with PSO, our board chair. Thank you for joining us today, Carrie.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We will start momentarily as folks are entering the room. All right. Welcome, everyone. We'll start here in just a few moments. Welcome to First Thursday. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll start here in just a minute with First Thursday. Appreciate everybody joining us today. We will be starting momentarily. Okay. Well, it looks as though we'll continue to have folks join us today, but again, we appreciate you all being here today with First Thursday with Sustainable Tulsa. And we're really in for a treat today. I'm really looking forward to the presentation. And today you're attending First Thursdays on the evolving electricity sector. Before we get started, I do want to say thank you for joining us, and we hope that you're staying healthy and safe, of course. Teresa is going to launch a poll for us, and if you don't mind, take a moment to answer those questions while we begin. That helps us as we plan for next year and to meet your needs. So thank you for taking a minute to fill that out. I also want to give thanks to our program sponsors. Our lead sponsor is Williams, our neighborhood partner.
You're on mute, Corey.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Okay. Our neighborhood sponsors are PSO and PSO Wind Choice. We appreciate their support. And our community advocates are American Waste Control, Covanta, the Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, Spirit Aerosystems, and the Tulsa Farmers Market. So thank you. Give them a round of applause and send them a little chat of gratitude, because we truly could not share this program with you every month without their support. So thank you to all of our sponsors. I also want to thank my board members that are here today: Carrie Rowland, Richard Cox, Wayne Isaacs, Carolyn, Danny, and Nadia Karolova, and Kathy Wiedenhoff, Rick Katarski, and if there's an Aaron Larder. And if you are joining afterwards, thank you so much for being here. And again, they've been amazing leadership in this last year or so, for sure. I also want to thank my team that's here today. I want to thank Teresa Kerrigan, Jill Maud, and Sherry Robinson, who's been helping us here for the last 90 days. We really appreciate that, Sherry, and Eric Gavula, and our fall intern, Sam Bauschke. So they have been amazing, and we appreciate their support. So give them a little round of applause, and also send them a chat of hello and gratitude if you get a chance to do that. For more information also about opportunities to get engaged with Sustainable Tulsa, becoming a supporter of Sustainable Tulsa is easier than ever before. So just for $25, your name can be added to our growing list of change makers in our community. There's you can go to our website and become a sponsor or a supporter. And so we appreciate that. That also helps us continue this program for you. So we appreciate all the support from our members. So take a moment if that's something you can do today. We really do appreciate it. Our next program will be the B2B Case for Sustainability series. And that is our Bellman Award winner panel on Thursday. And again, that is our scorecard members. Top performing scorecard members are invited to let us know what they're doing to make a difference at their own location and in the community. So we'll be celebrating our winners on November 18th from 8 to 10 a.m. online. The panel will feature representatives from our 2021 Bellman Award winners, including Christy Shreve with ICF, Diego Fernandez with Schlumberger Kellyville Learning Center, Lalana Takas with TD Williamson, Emily Rondenberg with Cox, and Rick Katarski with the Tulsa Zoo. That link is being dropped into the chat window now, so join us. We're going to have a chance to see their videos and hear from them, and a chance to learn what you might be able to do this coming year with your organization when it comes to your sustainability initiatives. So we're really happy for each of those winners, and we're looking forward to celebrating them. Our next First Thursday will be December 2nd, and that'll be from 12 to 1 online. Stay tuned to hear who our guest speaker will be. We're looking forward to that. Sustainable Tulsa launched a Facebook group in January this year, and it's helped to connect our community around some of the things that we talk about here and just other questions that might come up. So join us if you like to connect with more sustainably minded people, and just meeting once a month is not enough for you. So join our Facebook group, and Teresa's going to put that link in the chat for you so you can join today. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sherry as she will introduce our digital booths. Sherry?
All right. Hi, everybody. The first one I would like to introduce is our lead sponsor, Williams Companies. We just wanted to say thank you so much for supporting Sustainable Tulsa and supporting First Thursday as well. Our next digital booth is PSO. And Carrie, I believe you're in the room. Would you like to talk about your slides?
Yeah, thank you, Sherry.
Sure.
Just wanted to let everyone know that PSO, our rebate program, we're still open for business. If you have some projects you'd like to turn in, typically our rebates for our commercial business customers will pay, 10 to 30% of the project cost. And we can basically pay for any type of project where we find KWH savings. So keep that in mind. And one way we can pay the rebate is we can pay directly to you or to your service provider. It's just a line item on the invoice, so that makes it easier. You're not waiting on a check from PSO. So check out our website at Power Forward, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions. There's my contact info. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. There's also one more here, PSO Wind Choice.
Oh, sure. So by being a PSO customer, you're already around 20% renewable wind energy. But if you'd like to do a little more for the environment, you can always opt in to pay for some additional wind credits. It's not very expensive at all. You can pick, just a certain percentage of your energy usage, and it's just a great way to participate in renewable energy.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Our next one. Our next one is American Waste Control, and we'd like to thank American Waste Control. They're one of our community advocates, and we appreciate their continued support for First Thursday as well. And if you have any questions, you can contact Amanda Curtis at 918-955-2900. For our next one, the Metropolitan Environmental Trust. They're one of our community advocates as well. And we just want to say thank you for your continued sponsorship as well with First Thursday, Sustainable Tulsa. And you can see in the slide there, it shows all the centers where you can accept materials that cannot be recycled through curbside services. And as well for,
Sherry,
Yes.
it looks like they're in the room, so maybe Ollie would
Oh,
like
yay.
to say a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, I have their fun slide that's next too.
Yes, yeah. So all of our centers are still open and we are still recycling. And then we just wanted to talk a little bit about our current promotion. We are doing the Great Pumpkin Rescue. So several of our centers, including our Central East Tulsa locations, and then Sand Springs, Broken Arrow, Coweta, Bixby, and Owasso locations, we're taking people's old pumpkins and we are working with full sun composting, and we are going to compost those. So bring us your old pumpkins. Make sure you take out candles, any decorations. You know, we don't want fully painted or super glittery ones. If they have a little paint or a little, you know, decorations, markers, things like that, that's fine. But yeah, we're working with full sun to get those composted instead of putting those in the trash. So bring us your pumpkins, okay?
Yay, thank you so much. All right, our next one, and I believe she's here as well, Janelle with Save Our Streams. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. So I'm with the City of Tulsa Streets and Stormwater. Our mission is our motto there, Save Our Streams. We go out to different creeks and we do water testing to basically determine the water quality. We have, I don't know if you have a slide of our HHP facility.
You don't. But we'd like
Oh, okay. Well, I know what to say next time.
Yay.
But we also have our household pollution collection facility where we basically inform our residents to bring their household pollutions by, and it's free for Tulsa residents.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you
You're
for
welcome.
continued support as well.
Yeah.
All right, and lastly is the Tulsa Farmers Market, one of our community advocates. Thank you as well for your continued support to First Thursday. And please visit them every Saturday, 8:30 to noon in November and December. All right, next, I would like to turn it over back to Corey to introduce our speaker.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Really appreciate it. And again, thank you to all our sponsors and to some of the great activity they were also supporting around the community. It's my great pleasure of just getting to know Usha, and I've just really have enjoyed talking with her and learning more about the work she's doing. We just appreciate her time today. Usha Marie Turner serves as the Director of Environmental and Federal Public Policy for OG&E Energy Corporation. Her 20 years with the industry, Usha has held diverse and increasingly responsible roles spanning a broad range of topics within energy policy nationally, as well as both in Oklahoma and Texas. Usha has an engineering background from Texas A&M University and is originally from Trinidad and currently lives in Oklahoma City. Thank you so much, Usha. We really appreciate your time today and looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Corey, and thank you for inviting me here today. I am going to share my screen really quickly, and now a minute, let me rearrange some things here. Can you see that okay?
Yes, looks great.
Perfect. Well, hello, everybody, and I see as people have been joining, I see lots of familiar names and faces, so it's a pleasure really to be here and to talk to you about something that, as Corey said, I've been in this industry for 20 years and never 2 days the same. It's an exciting time to be in our industry. And what I will tell you today is this will be truly the tip of the iceberg. This is such a complex industry and there's so much I could talk about. And trust me, I could talk about it for hours. So today, what I wanted to sort of introduce you to and hopefully show you some things that perhaps you didn't know. I think in February, many of us learned about the Southwest Power Pool, which may or may not have been an entity that we really think about when we think about where electricity comes from in Oklahoma. So I want to talk about Southwest Power Pool because it is important in how and where we get our electricity, how the Oklahoma utilities play a role. And I know our fellow utility PSO is on the call with us. Sort of the current state of not just conventional, and when I talk about conventional, I typically think of nuclear, natural gas, coal, and then renewable or intermittent sources, again, we think of wind and solar being big in that space, what that looks like today and where that's going in the pool. And then just a little bit about operational differences. And you're going to hear a theme throughout this for me that really all of the above works. And so we really do need, especially now, all of the above strategy on energy. So I'll talk a little bit about some of that. And then all of that then leading into what we saw during Winter Storm Uri. Uri was the name of the storm in February. I know we all lived through it. That was a very challenging week for everybody. So I will talk just a little bit about that as well and hopefully pull that all together. A little bit about OG&E, in case you don't know who we are. We are a fellow utility to PSO, and PSO flanks us on 3 sides. And you'll see then that we've got electric generation, we've got transmission, which is the big transmission towers, distribution, which is at the local level, and then we serve over 870,000 customers. Our territory is mostly in Oklahoma, but we do serve a little bit of Western Arkansas. We've got an all of the above strategy ourselves. We are heavy on natural gas at the moment. Our coal fleet is in transition, and we have some wind and solar. We've got a new resource plan in the mix where we are looking to add more solar into our fleet going forward. And one of the things I say on my slide, we're a member of the Southwest Power Pool. I'll talk about that a little bit further down, and the membership being important because we are an independent company, much like all of the other members of the SPP are, including entities like GRDA. We all work collectively under the SPP umbrella, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So what is the Southwest Power Pool? We've heard about it. I would describe it as a collective pool of independently owned and operated resources. So OG&E owns and operates all of its infrastructure. But the pool is an oversight body, which is an independent organization and manages the regional reliability and transmission. And again, it's at the transmission level, very high voltage, those tall, very tall structures that you see. Forgive me if some of this sounds a little rudimentary. I'm going to approach it at a high level and very much look forward to your questions as we go through it. So what does it look like? The Southwest Power Pool, I think I have a gizmo here, which might help me. Here we go. No, not yet. There's my gizmo. Hopefully you can see it. The Southwest Power Pool is this sort of greeny blue area. You'll see that it is not just Oklahoma, but it covers all of the states north of us, the Texas Panhandle, a little bit of New Mexico. And then this odd shape here is just for reference, it's OG&E service territory. So this is, we talk about it being an independent and integrated organization. So what I mean by that, I'll show you actually in the next slide, but I also wanted to make note of, you'll notice some of these other independent system operators as well that function very much like SPP. Our neighbor to the south, called the Mid-Continent ISO or MISO, we had to borrow power from them, pull power across. There's a high voltage transmission line right through here, which is where we pulled some power over into SPP in February to help us serve the needs of our customers. There's one here called PJM, New York, New England, and part of California. We hear a lot about ERCOT. It occupies most of Texas. They didn't fare quite as well as the SPP did in that winter event, and several reasons why. But one important one is we actually have that tie over into our neighbor where ERCOT does not. So they weren't able to pull any meaningful amount of electricity into ERCOT from their neighbors. So we'll talk a little bit more and you'll see a slide later. So when I say that it's integrated, there's over 70,000 miles of transmission, which the SPP manages. So the SPP is both a region and an organization. So the different colors are just different voltages, but you'll see that really dense network here over Oklahoma because we have most of the people, believe it or not, in the Southwest Power Pool. Kansas to our north, and then it starts getting sparser as you go further north. Collectively, over this 14 state area, there's well over 1,000 power plants, and this is the current, so this is as of 2020, the current fuel mix in terms of where electricity is coming from. This picture today looks very different than it did, say, 10 years ago. So at the moment, we kind of have co-contributions from coal, natural gas, and wind. The wind sector is growing very quickly. The nuclear capabilities are in Kansas and Arkansas. There's some hydro in different places. Of course, Oklahoma has some of that. And you'll see barely making its place in the world is solar. Solar is the fastest growing new generation into SPP, faster than wind at the moment. So whereas solar is small at the moment, there is a tremendous amount of solar under development looking to site in the Southwest Power Pool. So all of this flows through those transmission lines. This photograph is the control center of the SPP. It's actually just a snippet of the control center. They are some busy people. They monitor the conditions 24/7, making sure that they are getting ahead of and planning for not just problems, but growth, and that we can make sure that we can keep the lights on 24/7, as much as is needed for every customer. And there's about 18 million people who live in this space. So that's a big job, and we are certainly part of that. So how do we integrate, or how do we interact? OG&E, much like PSO, and I keep referring to PSO because most of you are probably PSO customers. We have customers, so we serve you electricity. You'll see us in the communities. We are responsive to storms and outages. This was a particularly nasty one in the Panhandle, although that could have been last October. Transmission, we will construct transmission as needed. This is one of our power plants that we own and operate, and this is that control center for that power plant. So much as I've said, the analogy we like to talk about is SPP is kind of the air traffic controllers, and the utilities underneath are like the local ground control. So we're responsible for operating and responding to when the SPP calls on us to run our facilities. Let's see, I think I've said most of this. One of the things people don't realize is because we're in an integrated market, we buy and sell electricity. So we offer in all of our electricity into the pool. And sometimes we actually buy electricity out of the pool in order to serve all of our customers' needs. And the buying and selling is driven really on economics. And so the framework around how electric rates are set for our customers is driven on cost. So the pool, the operators within the Southwest Power Pool will call on power plants in what I refer to as economic merit. So generally speaking, those with the lowest cost of production will go out first, and SPP will layer on more and more sources and power plants to meet the needs, the daily need of that 18 million people customer base. And one thing SPP doesn't, or folks don't quite realize is we operate our facilities, but we do so on the dispatch order of the SPP. And so in Uri, for example, when we had to roll some of our customers off, which is always a last resort, we were doing so on the orders of the Southwest Power Pool. And that relationship is daily. The operators within the Southwest Power Pool are in constant communication with all of our central control and central dispatch. Oklahoma, focus a little bit on Oklahoma. This is a really busy map, and I won't focus too much on it. I'll just tell you that all the circles represent power plants. The colors are different types. Right off, you can notice the green is wind, the orange is coal, and the gas facilities are in purple. The density within Oklahoma, if you look at this, you can see there's a lot of power generation in Oklahoma. What does that look like? So right off the bat, really dominant in natural gas, which is not surprising. Wind, very strong, coal and hydro. I'll show you a chart here in a minute of what we used to look like a few years ago, and the story was very different. So when you look at all of the, let's take coal, for example, if you look at all the coal facilities, most of them now are in states outside of Oklahoma. And so this coal pie chart, piece of the pie chart is shrinking, and we expect it to continue to shrink. And then natural gas and wind coming in, and now solar to fill any gaps that that might create. So when I talk about what it looked like 10 years ago, this is electric generation in Oklahoma alone. So 10 years ago, if you look at coal, we've seen starting at about 2014, very, very sharp decline to where we are today in coal generation. And that gap has been filled by an uptick in natural gas and just this constantly uptick, increasingly larger amounts of wind coming into the Southwest Power Pool. These are all in Oklahoma. And then you'll see solar. Again, I said solar is making its appearance, and we expect this to look a little bit like this as in the years to come. Translating now into SPP, what does that look like for the SPP as a whole, which is the whole region? Similar. Focus on coal for a little bit. Here is coal coming down over the years. Where we are today is about equal parts coal in blue, gas in yellow, wind in green. But that wasn't the case just 10 years ago. And so really dramatic change in our industry, which is really, it's fascinating to watch a transition that significant in 10 years, which is a meaningful amount of time, but relatively short. Carbon dioxide emissions, as you can think of, with that fuel blend now changing, the carbon dioxide emissions for the SPP footprint have come down over 30%, even though demand has increased. So the area is growing. Oklahoma enjoys really high rate of growth. Lots of people and businesses are wanting to locate in Oklahoma because not just our cost of living, but our cost of energy is low. For the electricity sector, we have the lowest rates in the country. So again, quite an accomplishment to meet that growth and still see reductions in emissions. I think I've said some of this. So why are we seeing all of this? This is natural. We've always been this way. So it's interesting though, to look at it. The blue, we're doing a little bit of art class here. The blue is where the wind potential is. The yellow is the solar potential. And then you'll see the green, which is the mix of the two, being high potential for wind and solar. And then the red outline is the SPP footprint. So you'll see Oklahoma has a real advantage here for capitalizing on both wind and solar. And with the combination of things like federal tax incentives, which they are looking to renew and expand in the current budget reconciliation, the lowering cost of the technology behind wind and solar, and then customer and societal expectations. We're seeing real change in the portfolio of where electricity comes from. Let's talk a little bit, sorry, I kind of went too fast there. Let's talk a little bit about all of that. Sounds great. Why not more? Why isn't there more of all of that? So in the SPP, I mentioned that generation is dispatched on economic order. So what we find with the current state of economics in the industry is wind is typically dispatched out first. Nuclear is in there as well. We just don't have a lot of nuclear in the SPP. So wind will go out first, and the SPP will load up everybody else to meet the demand. So what does that look like? And this is going to be a little bit of an eye chart, I will warn you. This is a typical January, February period in the SPP, and I'll walk you through it. The green line is wind. So on January 1st to February 20, whatever it was, 7th or 8th, you live in Oklahoma, you know that that wind blows mostly in the spring and the fall. And in the spring, we get really high. The wind gets up there. Your trash cans are in your neighbor's yard if you're lucky. If not, the neighborhood next to you. It gets up there and it stays up there, blows really hard. So wind throughout January, February, you'll see these really tall peaks, but you'll also see these really steep drops within a day. Less than a day, sometimes a matter of hours. The blue line is natural gas. And so when wind is not blowing, something has to step up and fill the need. And right now that is natural gas. And the magnitude of it will really depend on gas prices. So here is natural gas, and you can see this very distinct inverse relationship between wind and gas. And you'll see that all the way through. The little orange line, steady as it comes, is nuclear. It's just steady, steady. The purple is coal, which roughly charts natural gas. It's just not up there, it's not in as high quantity. And then to the little teeth down here, just as a point of reference, that's solar. So you can see it follows the day. It's up during the daylight hours and down. Now let's look what happens in the summer. Very different story. It looks like an earthquake map. And the point of showing this is the very different seasonal variations in wind. And again, we are a wind dominated market. And natural gas and wind, natural gas is having to really spike up and down in order to keep track of the winds going up and down. And that takes a new thinking on our part on technology to be able to ramp up really quickly. Because wind can die really quickly. And the more and more wind you add into our system, the bigger that gap is in how much electricity is actually needed to serve your customers reliably. Nobody likes blinky lights. You'll see nuclear higher, and again, solar. So one of the things, I think I've talked about this, but one of the things hopefully you can see from this, and one of the takeaways you'll hear over and over from me is we need an all of the above strategy to be able to keep the lights on. No other reason, it's for reliability. And right now, there is still a very active role for natural gas, particularly technology, what we call quick start turbines. So power plants can come up to full load in hours, sometimes 12 hours. This new round of technology, they're like jet engines, and they can come up to full load in about 8 minutes. So you're seeing more and more of that being deployed in response to wind and these very rapid drops, very rapid drops in wind. Yeah, my toolbox analogy, I think of power plants in a pool like tools in a toolbox. When you go out for a job, you kind of take a range of tools so that you're always ready. And our approach to planning for weather conditions, just demand conditions which change. Electricity is a very summer dominated industry because that's when everyone uses their air conditions. So usage in the summer is a lot higher. In the winter, heating is driven by natural gas. And so we tend to use less electricity in the winter as we do in the summer. And you obviously see that in your bills. Wanted to share this, and I know you probably got a ton of questions, and we'll get to the questions at the end. But I wanted to share this because it's an interesting public opinion poll. This is a national survey. And the question was, which sources of energy can produce electricity under all weather conditions and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And the conclusion from this, and I'll walk you through why the conclusion is the way it is. Customers tend to overestimate the reliability of renewable energy sources while underestimating the reliability of traditional sources. So, those numbers, what do all those numbers mean? So conventional fuels or traditional sources, they are what we call 24/7. So they can be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we can call on them. We can dispatch them for lots of reasons, including they have access to fuel on site. So they're dispatchable, which is a very important element for us when you look at that graph, and you've got to respond to all of those changing conditions in the market. When we look at renewables, and I'm going to speak mostly for wind and solar here, they're weather dependent. And I think I'm speaking to a room full of Okies, and so you know what the weather does to us, especially seasonally. So don't hear this as a negative point against wind or solar, because they very much have a role. It's just a difference in your toolbox. When you know that you can dependably any hour of the day call on one and not the other, you're going to plan accordingly, and you have to plan accordingly. But it's interesting though that public, I'm sorry, there we go. Public perception is just something we're always working with in terms of setting expectations about what is possible. One in particular I wanted to call out, and for the life of me, I'm not quite sure why this is this way, although I think people want to believe certain things. So solar, the answer to this question, 37% of the people polled believe that solar is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But the 24 hours a day is what caught my attention. We're not quite there yet. I'm not quite sure when we'll get there, but certainly for the hours in the day that solar is available, solar is a great thing. So for us in the industry, you won't find anybody in this industry who isn't very passionate about this industry. It's life-sustaining, life-enhancing. It's fascinating, but it's very complex, and we need to do a better job of helping people understand a little more the dynamics of our industry. I'm going to talk a little bit about Uri. Uri is the lessons learned of Uri are still unfolding, and our response to it. So I'm going to show you just a little bit of what you all lived through. This map is fascinating to me. Again, this is the SPP. This dark blue area, which entirely covered the SPP, is temperatures below zero. And then you saw much of the country around us with 0 to freezing. Neighbors to the south really felt that in the North Texas area. So this is something we haven't seen in a very, very long time. I was given the year once, it was 18 something or the other. It was the last time we saw temperatures this low. And it presented a real challenge for us. It challenged everything. There wasn't a single resource that didn't experience a challenge. I will tell you that the SPP weathered through it, no pun intended, very, very well. It is unfortunate that we did have to roll some customers off for short periods. But considering what our neighbors to the south experienced, we are taking the lessons learned and reacting in a way that hopefully we never have to do this again. But given what could have happened and then what happened, SPP really did come through this strongly. Key days, Valentine's Day was February 14th, it was a Sunday. On Monday and Tuesday, we saw persistent sub-zero, -14, I think was a number that sticks into mind. What happened? This is busy, I'll walk you through it. So on the left is midnight on Sunday into Monday, and then on the other end is midnight Tuesday into Wednesday. These periods in red are when we had to load shed, meaning we had to roll customers off. We had a bigger need on Tuesday than we did on Monday. I was part of that. I was rolled off on both of those days for about a little over an hour each time. So what does all this color look like? Kind of looks like a geologic map. This black line is what all of our customers needed at every point along the day. The green was wind. Now, wind again, relying on weather, wind wasn't forecasted to blow with any strong demand or any strong that would result in strong generation. So wind just naturally wasn't blowing. Yes, there were also operational issues associated with some of those turbines. The next in here, these little ones, I think that's other, this is hydro. Gas. Gas came in, it was there, again, operational issues with gas. But gas produced whatever that is, a quarter of what we needed, perhaps, every hour through those 2 days. And then coal. And coal, that's at least half of what we needed for those 2 days. All the coal units in the region ramped up. This purple, you'll see that every available resource meaning power plant in the region was running as they could, and it still wasn't enough. So this purple is what we had to import through the transmission lines over into MISO. And so very basically, one of the issues in ERCOT is because they didn't have this ability. And so whereas our gap was right here in white, not saying to this magnitude, but conceptually ERCOT's gap, that would have been their gap. And you all remember, it was cold and we were all running our heaters. Now, every fuel type and every generation type experienced issues. But again, when I look at what we had to do versus what could have been, we will take those lessons and hope that we don't have to do this again in a next event. Yeah, and whereas wind was low here, I think if I remember right, towards the end of the week, wind, the ice had melted off the blades, wind came in stronger just as a matter of weather, and wind came up to take over some of that that need that was being called on by the other resources. So post-Uri, something this significant we don't just ignore as an industry. These happen from time to time. They can happen in the winter, they can happen in the summer. I think about 10 years or so, I remember a very significant summer, and I lived in Dallas at the time, and they were counting days over 100 degrees, and we had hit 100 days over 100 degrees. That will challenge your system in other ways as well. So there are multiple agencies and entities that are all engaged in looking at what happened, not just weather-wise, but operationally. And what do we need to learn from this so that we don't have this happen again? Truly, when I say that rolling customers off is truly, truly, truly the last resort for us. And as a power provider, you never want to be in that position. Electricity is important. It's vital. If we hadn't rolled off, we would have had a much bigger problem. We would have had more sustained, longer outages. So in order to protect the integrity of the grid at large, short periods of time, we rolled off customers in order to keep stability on the grid. We are looking at, so conversations, what is in this conversation? Current state of technology, the role of conventional resources in preserving grid stability and reliability, of course, the role of renewables in that world as well. You won't hear me speak negatively about any one source or the other. I'm truly, and OG&E is as well, believes that you do need a diverse set of resources as part of any day, any circumstance. What I just said, there's a connection here between wind and natural gas and electricity. The electric power sector is the largest customer of natural gas nationally. And that's growing. Our dependence on natural gas is growing as renewables and batteries and others mature into that space. So that's a real conversation between us, is the dependency on natural gas as a source and the issues that the natural gas and the wind industry experienced and how that affected us. Yeah, and you've heard me say this too many times. I look at Uri and I think it really was a great case study for the need for fuel diversity and technology. So a lot still going on and more to come. I mean, these are events that we will continue to talk about for years after. So what am I going to leave you with? You've got lots of questions, I'm sure. Oklahoma and the utilities within Oklahoma are part of a much larger system. But when you look at Oklahoma as a state, we are really leading the region, the SPP region, in its transition to cleaner energy. We're maintaining reliability, and something people may not know, we've got the lowest rates in the nation. To be able to do all of that collectively is an accomplishment that many are still striving towards. And so, you know, credit to all of those who are part of energy policy in Oklahoma, and the utilities and other electric providers and generators in the state to make that happen. Talk about the power industry at large. In a sort of continuing theme nationally, the power industry is no longer the largest source of carbon dioxide in the country, and our emissions keep dropping. Along with carbon dioxide, other emissions like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, nitrogen dioxides, you're seeing drop as well, fairly significantly. Nitrogen dioxide, of course, is something we talk about for ozone, so we're always keeping an eye on that. And again, it's the last time I'll say it. Balanced energy portfolio is just so critical to maintaining a consistent service, which for us in serving our customers, reliability is paramount. Yes, affordability, safely, with a lowering footprint is all important, but reliability being first. So with that, I think I'm a little early, but I am gonna take your questions.
Thank you so much, Usha. Really appreciate that, and really putting it in perspective what goes into managing electricity for all of your customers throughout the year, and some of those challenges, and loving seeing that, you know, that interest of the diverse portfolio and working toward that. So we definitely have a lot of questions coming through. And so I see here, you know, one of the last ones that came through is really asking about the storm there, and about how wind turbines, about the wind turbines there. And sorry, the questions are starting to flow in so fast, I can't keep up with them. So let me look here real quick. And this is really, you keep hearing about the tremendous demand for more local capacity to marijuana grow operations, and concern about potentially developing capacity only to have demands diminish due to market oversaturation. So do you have anything to say about that?
Okay, I think, I don't know if I got the entire question. Corey, can you read that again for me? I'm sorry.
I think it's really just kind of talking about this oversaturation of the need for tremendous demand from this particular industry, the marijuana industry.
Yeah, well, interestingly, and it's interesting to be in Oklahoma and know that one of the fastest growing demands for electricity are indeed grow houses. I was reading an article today out of one of the Tulsa newspapers that was talking about, you know, the national entities that are purchasing large tracts of land for grow houses. We are seeing a big uptick in that, followed by Bitcoin is also emerging, not quite as established as marijuana, indoor agriculture. So it is something we watch. It is something we are managing. For the time being, we are managing that demand. And one of the reasons why, and I'll tell you that as an industry, again, there's a tremendous amount of planning that goes into every day. And one of the things that we are responsible for, the SPP is responsible for, is forecasting growth. And even without the forecasting of growth, there is always a reserve margin in how we plan for how much generation do we need to have online and built every year. There's a cushion that's baked into that. And that cushion is there for a number of reasons, not just storm events and high weather, summer weather, for example, but there's a cushion there to absorb some of these fluctuations that happen, like an industry coming in. It is something we're watching on a regular basis, and we're building into all of our forecasting. So for now, we are keeping up with it, but it is very interesting to watch that growth of not just indoor agriculture, but now things like Bitcoin. It's an interesting problem to have. It's not a bad problem to have in terms of new industry wanting to locate into your footprint and drive economic development for the region. Having said that, I completely understand some of the concerns that come along with that industry in particular.
Thank you. Another question that came up, it was about, it says, obviously you can't control when the wind blows. Part of the challenge during Uri was the wind turbines that were not fit for icy conditions. Canada and Northern Europe use wind turbines all winter. What is the difference in the equipment? And are there, I guess the follow-up is, are there any opportunities to update here in preparation for those storms?
Great question. And it is a question that everybody is talking about. And what I'll say is where we focus on the wind turbines, the issue of what I refer to as weatherization actually applies to all of power plants. So, units in whether you're coal or your gas production or your wind turbines, when you're in Canada or the Dakotas, your average weather is very different from what it is here. And so you plan for your typical weather plus maybe some. What we saw in Uri was just so far out of what you would plan for that it really did test the weatherization capabilities of everything from, coal to natural gas production on that industry side and wind. And so what are people doing about it? You bet people are responding. We have wind farms. We're looking at, what can we now put on retroactively that would help us through a situation like that. We still have a couple of coal plants. And so we're looking at, okay, those things that were problematic during Uri, what can we do differently? So the industry is very much, even for this winter, making adjustments as they can in response to what we learned. But it wasn't just a wind turbine issue. Everybody struggled in Uri. But again, I think as an industry, we got through it as best as we could. It truly was a tremendous effort to keep everything running in those conditions.
And I guess, thank you, Usha. I think kind of a follow-up, one of the questions here was saying that, that they heard that other traditional power generation also froze, like for the natural gas, as well as some of the coal equipment. And the larger, one, is that true? And two, the follow-up to that is, are we in the need to do that overall system, weatherization, where we're kind of increasing that and the cost of that, and also the impact when it comes to carbon and things like that, as you're preparing for those worst case scenarios?
Yeah, there's two parts to that. One is the reaction to Uri, and the other is the reaction perhaps to weather events that perhaps may become more frequent. And it's interesting of that second piece, because are we looking at more Uris? Are we looking at more storms? Are we looking at hotter summers? So the answer to Uri is yes, every technology struggled. Not just on the power plant side, so wind turbines to coal plants, but on the natural gas production side as well. And weatherization, definitely an active discussion in there. I'm not in the natural gas industry, but I think the natural gas production side of things, they also plan in their weatherization for typical conditions. So even in the gas industry, what they do in North Dakota is going to look different than what they do here or in Texas. So the next bit is resilience, I think, is the question in terms of, what are we planning for? What are we trying to be resilient to? Is it more Uris? Is it more summers? Is it more storms? And those are active conversations. It's a moving target for us as to what are we planning for. For example, Uri, we could go put a, down Parker on all of our infrastructure, but how are they going to operate with that down Parker on 105-degree day? So very much in conversation. So we're still working through that from a resilience standpoint, but in terms of planning for winter seasons in the near term, those lessons are definitely being acted on.
Great. Thank you. So I know we have time for a couple more questions. One here is any activity or investigation into green hydrogen for a power supply as part of your portfolio?
Yes, green hydrogen is the thing. Obviously, in emerging technology, batteries is on the scale. Batteries are just not of the size and duration that we need them to be. We as an industry heavily advocate for advancing that technology. Hydrogen, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, definitely in conversation. Those are emerging conversations. I know the state has set up a hydrogen task force to answer through some of those questions. We have evaluated whether how much of our natural gas power plants, how much hydrogen we could burn in our gas plants. So, that's a nice little interface between us and the gas industry about how much can we use and how much can be supplied and what does that look like. Cost is always a consideration as part of being a regulated utility. And again, reliability, it's definitely emerging, but definitely in conversation.
Great. Okay. And one more here, or a couple more. There are a lot coming in. Let's just say that you've simulated a lot of questions.
Excellent.
and one here thanks you for your time, but wants to also know, will OG&E, what's the timeline for phasing out coal plants, and maybe be specific to Oklahoma and then in general and the SPP, and then also what will you be replacing the coal with? How will you be looking at your portfolio at that point?
Great questions. So in Oklahoma, we still have a number of coal plants. OG&E has coal units at 3 facilities. A few years ago, I'm trying to think of what year we're in, 2 years ago, we took the first step in that transition by retiring. Well, we actually converted 2 units at our Muskogee facility to natural gas. So that was a significant conversion for us. At the time, that was 2 out of 5 units that we had. And that was a significant step for us. So the timeline, we are still looking through when is the right time economically to start making those reductions. Those plants still have a life left in them and a value associated with them, not just into the market, but an impact to our customers' rates. So again, as we look at our long-term planning, if you look at weather events like Uri and times when gas prices are high or demand is really stressing our system, which can happen in the summer for extreme summers, coal tends to step in and meet that need. So today, there is still the reliability need for coal, not just in Oklahoma, but in the pool at large. But those units are definitely in the discussion as far as when is the right time with reliability and affordability in mind to start phasing those out. And what to replace them with. What we believe we're replacing them with and what we've seen others replace them with is a mix of renewables. At the moment, OG&E currently has a proposal out for adding new solar into our system, which will satisfy new growth. We've got 2 gas units that are retiring, they're older. So we're replacing that capacity with solar and more efficient gas. You heard me say in response to the variability of wind, that there is a real need in the name of reliability for those fast reactive, fast responsive natural gas units. They're like jet engines. And so that's a combined proposal that we have before the commission today, is to increase not just solar in our footprint, but support the solar and the existing wind with a few of those jet engines, if you will, those quick start jet engines.
Great. Well, thank you. And then I guess kind of a follow-up, and maybe you've already answered this, is there any goal to have new coal plants being considered as well? As you're phasing some out, are you also considering adding new ones?
No, no. You know, I think our days of building coal are done. I think that is true. You know, there's always the conversation around carbon capture sequestration, which is also emerging and interestingly now being considered for natural gas units as well as the carbon capture and then sequestration. But OG&E does not have plans to build any more coal plants.
Great. Well, thank you, Usha. So interesting. And you can see now in the chat, just so many other questions there that we couldn't get to all of them. Some really wonderful, thoughtful questions, and some are answering each other's questions. So thank you for that. But I know you had offered to stick around a little bit.
Yep.
And so we'll have a few more minutes for people to have a chance to visit with you. But again, thank you so much for your time with us today. Just, I learned a lot and love hearing the addition, of course, of renewable energies entering in and growing in your portfolio. And so thank you for explaining how that works and for your time. So let's give Usha a round of applause. I know
Thanks,
you can't
guys.
probably hear it, but it is out there. Teresa's going to launch one more poll for us as we wrap up, but please take a moment to answer that if you can. And we will be sending an email. Sherry will be sending that out tomorrow. And thank you, Sherry, for your first Thursday, helping us as we navigate these next couple months with Sustainable Tulsa and our program. So thank you. Round of applause for Sherry for her good work today. But please take a moment, take the poll so we know how to best get a hold of you and to improve our programming. And while you're answering that, I want to let you know that our November, and I think maybe Usha there, if you might just stop sharing, because I think Sherry's going to share a couple more slides here at the end with us. But again, thank you, Usha. Tomorrow, again, we'll send out that email, but we also have a challenge for November, and that challenge is to replace a light bulb for, I think she's bringing it up there. Let's see. Yes, is to change out one light bulb with an LED light bulb every week in November. Of course, you don't want to waste the bulbs you already have, but start replacing, because you will find a savings there and your energy savings there. So if you can, and let us know on our Facebook page that you're working on that, or questions that you might have. It's a great place to add that information there. So engage around that. Teresa will put that link there in the chat for us. And again, a great way to stay connected around all these ideas and the questions that came up today and keep the conversation going. Thank you again to all of our sponsors, lead sponsor Williams. Thank them so much for their support of our First Thursday programming, our neighborhood partners, PSO company, as well as the Oklahoma PSO Wind Choice program. Thank you to both of those programs for their support over the years and offering, of course, the Wind Choice program, and our community advocates, American Waste Control, Covanta, the Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, Spirit Air Systems, and the Tulsa Farmers Market. Thank you to all of them. And we look forward to seeing you next month for First Thursday on December 2nd. So look out for that update. Again, thank you all for joining us. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next month.